the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefania Bravo, and this is From the South. Police Homicide Division agents have carried out arrest warrants for suspects in the murder of councilwoman and activist Marielle Franco. The warrants were carried out in 15 homes in Rio de Janeiro and Minas Gerais. According to investigations, police were involved in the plot. 9 months have passed since Franco and her accompanying driver, Anderson Gomes, were assassinated on March 15th. Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza provided additional details of the U.S.-backed plot to destabilize Venezuela. Arreaza met members of the diplomatic corps in Caracas to present the details of the conspiracy revealed by President Nicolás Maduro on Wednesday and warned of the harm such actions could cause to the region. He said the Colombian government needed to explain why hundreds of paramilitaries are being trained in Colombia to overthrow the Venezuelan government.
Imagine that tomorrow there is an attack on a Colombian unit on the border, or an attack on a Venezuelan unit, and let's say that there are Venezuelan soldiers sparking a war to ignite a situation of conflict between Venezuela and Colombia, to later justify international intervention. That the denouncement that was made yesterday will prevent the carrying out of these attacks. We insist that the government of Colombia, its authorities, and the government of the United States ought to investigate the accusations which have been made.
The minister said that as Christmas approaches, President Maduro wanted to convoke this meeting to ask that foreign delegates could transmit a message to their foreign ministers and to their heads of state.
We want to prevently make this condemnation to avoid the bloodshed of Venezuelans, of Colombians, and any bloodshed on this continent. Respect Venezuelan sovereignty. Respect for the sovereignty of a state like Venezuela should be the most important in relations with Venezuela, just as it should be in relations with any country and any state with another.
Our correspondent in Caracas, Madeline Garcia, brings us more.
We've heard from Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza, who said we're just in the nick of time. Just one call, a message, could prevent bloodshed. Once diplomacy breaks down, a war will follow. And that's what Venezuela wants to avoid. And that's the reason for the preventative denouncements made by President Nicolás Maduro in order to prevent any sort of situation. And as the Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza said to the diplomatic corps, which is accredited here in the country, with these condemnations, they hope that they can halt the plans which are being developed.
And on Wednesday, President Maduro accused the United States of directing the new plot against him. Maduro said that U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton was in charge of the plan to assassinate him and lead a coup against his government. He said Venezuela has evidence that the Colombian government is facilitating the training of Colombian and Venezuelan paramilitaries in the Department of North Santander.
So this plan of John Bolton's has another operational center, the Tolmeda Air Base in Colombia.
And for his part, Colombian President Iván Duque has denied President Maduro's claims, but said it is committed to political and diplomatic action to remove the elected government of Venezuela.
Colombia
is under no circumstances planning nor thinking about any style action against any country in the region. We won't allow such doubts or accusations to be made. Those accusations must be rejected by all Colombians. And what should be made clear is that those who are exercising dictatorship against their citizens, generating significant migration flows, must respond to international justice.
On Thursday, Russian and Venezuelan pilots and military personnel continued joint military exercises to ensure the defense of Venezuela against external threats. The training sessions included a 10-hour flight over the Caribbean sea waters, as well as air cooperation practices among the pilots of the two nations. According to a report of the Russian Defense Ministry, the flights were carried out in strict compliance with the regulations of use of the international airspace. Previously, the Venezuelan Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez declared that Caracas and Moscow began these combined operations with the objective to increase the security measures for both countries. The youth wing of Venezuela's Socialist Party has shown its solidarity with the former Vice President of Ecuador, Jorge Glass. Glass recently suspended a hunger strike he had been on for 52 days from prison to demand that his rights be respected.
Call for justice and respect for the human rights of Jorge Glass. They were a clear sign that Venezuela and Ecuador stand united in the same cause.
President Lenin Moreno not only betrayed Jorge Glass, but he also betrayed former President Rafael Correa and the people of Ecuador. He betrayed Latin Americans who believe in unity and justice, who believe in dignity and respect.
The event was a tribute to the bravery of Ecuador's former vice president, who was sentenced to 6 years in prison back in January. For these Venezuelan organizations, his arrest amounts to political persecution. They demand his release.
Lawfare is taking over Ecuador, and it's become quite notorious. Unfortunately, different bodies of the United Nations have turned a blind eye. No international organization has done anything.
Together, they raised their voice in support of the region's progressive governments, under attack from abroad and at home. For these activists, the government of Lenin Moreno has completely changed the policies that got it elected in the first place, and is now attached to neoliberal interests.
Moving on, a gunman in Palestine has killed 2 people and injured 2 others in the occupied West Bank. The shooting took place near the illegal Israeli settlement of Ofra in the central West Bank. According to Israeli forces, the gunman was shot by an armed passerby. The attack happened a few hours after Israeli security forces killed 3 Palestinians in overnight raids. Meanwhile, the Israeli military has surrounded the city of Ramallah and closed all entry and exit points. And hundreds of Palestinians in Gaza have marched in solidarity with the victims of raids by Israeli soldiers. The demonstrators chanted slogans in support of Palestine and vowed to continue the fight to end the Israeli occupation of Palestine. We now go live again to Stephen Barbour, an independent journalist based in Ramallah, who witnessed the overnight shootings in the West Bank. Thank you for joining us, Stephen. Since we talked earlier, the city of Ramallah has been locked down. Could you tell us about what is happening there?
Yes, the whole West Bank right now is under siege. Travel roadblocks and checkpoints have been closed. Access to different cities have been closed. The Israeli occupation force came into Ramallah, and they had clashes with different Palestinians. Today I was at a class in northern Ramallah, and 3 people were injured, few arrested. A lot of people had tear gas inhalation, and the soldiers came in and they arrested 3 people and took them out.
Stefan, have any new attacks happened today in the West Bank? The situation has seemed to intensify.
What I know is that the buildup has been coming all week because of the increased settler violence around the West Bank. I think Netanyahu has given the green light to the settlers to do whatever they want. It started with attacks in the northern West Bank city of Nablus. And then it was a retaliation by Palestinians Sunday. And then the next day, the military came into Ramallah. on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and they took the video cameras from the Palestinian Authority's official news agency, Wafa, and they took the video out and seized the building, and then they had clashes with different Palestinians that day. But the build-up's been coming all week. Today, finally, settlers attacked a taxi, killed one, injured a few, and it's just been going on all week, and the violence has increased consistently.
At this point, are forces still searching for the gunman? Have you heard anything on that?
I think they've arrested one, and they're still searching. Soldiers are still in Ramallah right now. The access to leaving the city has been shut down, and that's all that I know of so far that I can say that is true.
One last question for you. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to legalize thousands of Israeli settlements in the West Bank following these attacks. What are Palestinians' reactions to this?
Well, the Palestinians, it's just the same old stuff from Netanyahu. I think that he had to show the settlers that he was on their side, so he's just saying anything to gain more power for the upcoming elections in March. And he thinks he'll gain votes from that. It shows that Netanyahu and the Israelis don't want a two-state solution, that they don't want a peace plan.
Stephen, we thank you so much for your time for Telesur. We have been speaking with Stephen Barbour. He's an independent journalist based in Ramallah. With that, let's take a short break now. Welcome back. Members of the migrant caravan have delivered a request to the United States government demanding the removal of the president of Honduras, Juan Orlando Hernandez, and the delivery of $50,000 if the petition of free entry is rejected by the United States. Migrants, mainly Honduran, organized a protest in front of the United States consulate in Tijuana, where they delivered a letter to U.S. authorities where they established a deadline of 72 hours to fulfill their demands. They say that if their demands are not met within that time, they will enter into U.S. territory en masse. Meanwhile, another group belonging to the caravan delivered a second letter in which they also asked that the caravan be kept informed on how to ask for asylum in the United States. Our correspondent in Mexico, Pablo Perez, keeps us informed on what's going on in Tijuana.
Well, it's been 24 days since the first members of the migrant caravan arrived here to Tijuana on the Mexican state of Baja California, bordering with the American state of California. And well, once was a 6,000 strong group is now scattered all over the town in different shelters. The biggest one holding up to 2,500 migrants, and well, the rest is in smaller enclavements and encampments all over the city. But something that is very relevant is the statistics that we have received, the numbers we have received from the official agencies, both in the United States and from the Mexican government. The California Border Patrol says that they have detained over 2,100 migrants from Central America origin crossing the border. Let's remember that this is one of the ways for them, the fastest way to to start their application for refugee status, for humanitarian asylum in the United States, to be on North American soil, and then when detained, ask the official for the beginning of their refugee or asylum status process. But on the other hand, it's the Mexican National Migration Authorities say that they have processed over 3,400 applications for asylum here on Mexico. Those are the migrants that are not in a hurry to cross the border. They know it's dangerous, and it's a high-risk process, and there is very low possibilities of their getting asylum in the United States. It's calculated that only under 20% of the applicants are really qualified for asylum. So those 3,400 migrants have applied for asylum in Mexico, and they are taking advantage of the offer by the new Mexican president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, that said on December 1st, when he took office, that he will ease the process for Central Americans to ask for asylum on Mexican soil, which will benefit them with the possibility of traveling all over the country and also looking for jobs, and then it can be in the formal market, so they can receive all the benefits on health insurance and the daycares that Mexican workers are supposed to get by law. So a lot of them, those migrants that left their countries in Honduras, Salvador and Guatemala with the idea of crossing the crossing borders until they get to the state. Not now. They are choosing to stay in Mexico. Well, that offers them better conditions and a lot more possibilities to find what they are looking for.
We thank Pablo Perez for that report. And in Argentina, the mothers of Plaza de Mayo are organizing their 30th March of Resistance, which will start on Thursday and last until Friday. The march has been led by Eve de Bonafini since the 1980s to demand respect for human rights. Students and other social organizations will join the march. They will also organize a public, political, and ethical trial by the people against judges in the country. They demand the end of lawfare, especially against leaders such as former President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner. And court workers in Argentina are holding a 48-hour strike to demand that the government honor a previously agreed wage increase. Our correspondent in Buenos Aires, Sabrina Roth, has more.
A 48-hour strike started on Thursday by the Union of Workers in the Justice System. They're demanding payment of the last part of their wage increase that was previously agreed by the Supreme Court. This included 10% paid in April, 10% in August, and another 10% in October. Now they want to be paid that final 10%. This increase is meant to help them keep up with the country's inflation, which is expected to reach 45% by the end of the year. They also want guarantees for the independence of the judiciary. They say that extra powers charters have been handed over to the government of Buenos Aires, and this will lead to an increase in interference by the executive power in judicial matters. Finally, they are condemning the imposition of new taxes on court workers, which they say is a form of interference in judicial work.
We thank Sabrina for that report. And lawmakers in Colombia's Congress managed to block a reform that would have allowed the government to arrest former FARC combatants. The right-wing party Centro Democrático proposed this law on the grounds of allegedly security and public interest. The FARC party and other supporters of the peace agreement rejected it. The UN has repeatedly called for legal guarantees to protect the lives of the FARC members and respect the peace deal.
We did not expect them to try to put these new articles there at such a late hour at night, through the back door. That basically takes away the power of the special jurisdiction for peace and what was agreed upon to overcome the armed conflict.
And in the Caribbean, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has made history. It's the first member of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States to decriminalize marijuana for medical and scientific purposes. Parliament has approved 2 pieces of legislation that allows for production of the crop. The Caribbean island is now positioned to become a leading medical cannabis hub in terms of research and production. According to authorities, the country's growing conditions are well suited to producing the highest quality grade medicinal cannabis available on the global market.
For medication, so I making provision for an amnesty to be given for traditional cultivators who want to come into the mainstream of the medical cannabis industry. And this medical cannabis industry is fashioned largely as an export industry. Of course, we will have people in St. Vincent and Grenadines who will be prescribed cannabis for a medical condition. And also we will have tourists coming here for health and wellness purposes, where cannabis may be prescribed for medicinal purposes.
CARICOM has held talks with Aruba about the Dutch territory's application for associate membership of the Caribbean bloc. CARICOM Secretary General Erwin Larocque met with Aruba's Prime Minister Evelyn Weaver-Croes to determine the benefits the relationship could yield. Aruba currently holds observer status. Heads have also agreed to examine an agreements policy for CARICOM, which has 15 full members and 5 associate ones.
Ministers of Finance and other heads of delegation.
And Barbados is mourning the loss of one of its musical and cultural icons. Veteran calypsonian Don Marshall has passed away. Sir Don, as he was fondly known, died in his sleep earlier on Thursday. He was known for his hard-hitting calypso commentary. A stalwart of Crop Over Festival, the 4-time calypso monarch also excelled as a writer, composer, and calypso analyst. The lyrical icon was also the recipient of the 2007 Barbados Music Awards Lifetime Achievement Award. We'll be back very soon. Stay with us.
Sorpresa de todas las sorpresas. La piedra angular de la historia norteamericana no está, como podríamos sospechar, en Washington cruzando el Delaware, en Pocahontas y los colonos intercambiando comida, en Lincoln, en Gettysburg. No, la piedra angular está exactamente en el Álamo. Paradoja, no es la historia de una victoria, es la historia de una derrota y una masacre, es la historia tejana y no norteamericana.
Sunday, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Sri Lanka's Supreme Court has ruled as unconstitutional President Maithripala Sirisena's decision to sack the Prime Minister, dissolve Parliament, and hold snap election. A 7-judge bench of the court said the president does not have the power to dissolve Parliament at will. Sri Lanka has been in political crisis since October, when the president abruptly sacked the then Prime Minister. A South African court has ruled that former President Jacob Zuma must pay for the legal cost of criminal prosecutions brought against him while in office. The ruling means Zuma will have to pay legal costs dating back to 2005. The country's main opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, dragged Zuma to court to force him to pay back over $1 million in taxpayers' money. The party claims he used these funds to fight personal legal battles. And South Africa is hoping for a green rush. The country held its first cannabis industry exhibition since the private use of cannabis was ruled legal. From medicinal oils, dog treats, to clothing made of pure hemp, visitors were introduced to a wide range of cannabis-derived products at the trade show held in Pretoria. The country's top court decriminalized private use and cultivation of cannabis in September 2018. And now, entrepreneurs hope the region can become a hotspot for the cannabis industry.
It's an emerging industry, and we're sitting on the apex of it. We're just sitting on the tip of the iceberg. Next 20 years, this industry is like this worldwide. It's the green rush that's on, and everybody's jumping on it. We were big.
Europe's political storm continues to engulf some of its leaders, but the odds were in favor of French President Emmanuel Macron, who won a no-confidence motion brought against him. The motion only received 70 votes, well short of the 289 there sold. Representatives from the French Communist Party, the Socialist Party, and the far-left populist movement united to table the motion. However, those lawmakers comprised only about 10% of the National Assembly, making it extremely unlikely that Macron would have lost. A church in the Netherlands has been holding 24-hour prayer services more than 6 weeks to prevent the deportation of an Armenian family. Under Dutch law, police cannot enter a place of worship while a religious ceremony is underway. So, hundreds of worshippers from the Netherlands and abroad have been holding a marathon service to help the family who now lives in the building. The family fled from Armenia fearing persecution in 2010, but after waiting for 9 years for their asylum application to be processed, the court ultimately rejected it.
Immigration procedures often take a long time, and as a result, hundreds of immigrant children grow up during these procedures, and they have settled here and rooted here now. It's highly damaging for these children to be uprooted and to be forced to leave after having lived here for so many years.
This is just in. The United States Senate has approved a resolution to curb Saudi support and condemn the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The War Powers resolution would withhold U.S. military assistance to Saudis in Yemen. The measure essentially defies U.S. President Donald Trump's response to the death of Khashoggi and is one of several legislative efforts to target the current prince and the Trump administration's policy towards Saudi Arabia.
That just because you're our ally, you cannot kill with impunity.
This is not going away. This is something we are going to...
And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.